Christmas is right around the corner, but FLIPMAS, which is a major correspondent to the world of early signing period, also known as the new National Signing Day, is beaming bright. And Santa Claus might have given the folks of Lincoln a little bit more than just holiday cheer headed into 2024. Let's talk about the recent commitment of number one overall quarterback recruit Dylan Raiola to the Huskers in year 2 of the Matt Rhule era. If you are new here, welcome on into the channel. My name is Cole Thompson. I'm a radio show host based in Houston, and I talk college football daily. So this is the type of content you enjoy, plus anything going on with coaching searches, the national championship, the transfer portal, early signing period, and a bunch of other nonsense that we call in our favorite sport. Make sure you smash that subscribe button down below. Leave a comment telling me your thoughts on Dylan Raiola strapping it up in Lincoln for 2024. Tell your friends, your family, your mortal enemies, your best of bros, Nebraska fans, and college football aficionados everywhere about this channel, because we're on the race and so dang close, so close that we could make my holiday season merry and bright if you hit subscribe. We get to 1,000 before Christmas, but the race doesn't stop there. We're pushing towards 10,000, then 25,000, then ultimately 100,000 and more. So make sure you continue to tell everybody about this channel. Give me a follow on social media at Mr. Cole Thompson. Email me, the link's down below. That way, the flow of conversation with college football never has to stop. So Dylan Raiola initially committed to Ohio State, and then he realized, you know what, I'm okay. I'm going to reopen my commitment. And so he views Nebraska as an option, but he also views Georgia as an option, and he moves to Buford. And then after that, he decides, I'm going to go play for the Bulldogs. Well, leading up to the early signing period on Wednesday, there was speculation that Dylan Raiola could end up being brought over to Lincoln. And this wasn't just conversations being had on message boards and hearing from a friend of a friend of a friend, or Dave in Omaha calling into a radio show. Congratulations, Dave, you were right on this. But there was factuality behind it. And Raiola went and visited the campus this past weekend. He made it official on Monday night that he will declare and go to Nebraska for 2024. This is monumental for a variety of reasons. Let's start off with the short term. They get the quarterback of the future. They get the kid that everybody is chasing after. It's like finding an accidental curly fry in a bunch of straight fries. Like, it's a blessing. You will savor that for as long as possible, because it doesn't happen daily. And it used to at Nebraska. You used to get curly fries all the time. And the curly fries were 5 stars that were can't miss prospects. But I digress in the situation. Now you're getting back to that persona underneath Matt Rhule. So a kid that could have gone anywhere in the country, every school wanted him, said, I want to play for the Huskers. I want to be a part of something special in Lincoln. That's a huge plus in your feather in the cap for Matt Rhule, especially for when it comes to the persona of what is going to be the focal point of Nebraska football moving forward. The other plan in the short term, you now strengthen your recruiting class. And there's going to be a lot of kids who see a quarterback go to a school that are undecided. Wide receivers, running backs, offensive linemen, and they say, I get to block for the number 1 quarterback in the country. Sign me up. I get to catch touchdowns at Memorial Stadium in Lincoln, a place that is known as football pedigree in the grand scheme of things. Sign me up. Tight ends are going to get involved, and running backs are going to get involved. And then there you go. Your recruiting class that was probably middle tier in the Big Ten, or maybe even upper tier in the Big Ten, gets national attention, and people are starting to pay attention. And now there's a clear pathway and an image of what Matt Rhule tried to implement when he interviewed with Trev Albert for the job. Now he gets to bring it into fruition. So these are the short-term goals. You get your quarterback of the future. Who cares what happens to Kyle McCord? Who cares what happens to guys like Cam Ward and Tyler Van Dyke and anybody else that's into the transfer portal? We got Dylan Raiola. That's number 1. Number 2, long-term goals. For Raiola, anybody saying he's running away from competition, far-fetched and drastically mistaken. Nebraska will play a rigorous schedule every single season. And yes, it's not at the same level as what Georgia will go through in a new version of the SEC that features Texas and Oklahoma and an emerging Ole Miss team. But you are taking on Penn State, and you are taking on Ohio State, and you are taking on Michigan, and programs like Michigan State that could be on the come up, and Iowa that has a potent defense, and Wisconsin, which seems to be turning the corner going into year 2 of Luke Fickell, and a bunch of other teams, not to mention the ones that are coming over from the West Coast, Best Coast. How about USC with a hopeful revamped defense, or Washington, the team that's playing in the college football playoff? So competition is not dwindling. It's just not moving into the higher spectrum like it would at Georgia. It still is very potent. It still is alive and well. And there is pressure. And with pressure comes potential. And the potential of Dylan Raiola being the long-term answer in Lincoln is big. And the pressure that's on him is massive. You realize Raiola is a very well-known name in Lincoln. His dad played there. His uncle works on Matt Rhule's staff. There is a pedigree that comes with being a part of a family that has ties to the university. And there's expectations. There's expectations anywhere, especially when you're a household name. But for a player who goes to the same school as their dad, drastically different. This is not Marvin Harrison Jr. having to live up to a Hall of Fame pass catcher's name. This is you going to the same school and being a part of the solution. Nebraska has not been to a bowl game since 2016. Nebraska has gone through two different coaches that failed to meet expectations. One they held on to a little too long, and the other one that never got a fair shake. They wanted to make change, and Mike Riley was a good coach, but he never was a great coach. Scott Frost was a good coach at the Group of 5 level. Best of luck to you when you were in Lincoln. Maybe another shot at being an offensive coordinator will get you back on course. But Nebraska, you be the quarterback that wins there. It's not like Georgia. It's not like Alabama. It's not like LSU, where they'll remember you. You'll walk into the stadium on Saturdays and people will call out your name and they'll bring up fond memories of, I remember when he did this, or I remember when he won that. I remember when he won this award. Yeah, those will happen. But so will potentially you get a statue. So will potentially you being exonerated as the savior, the solution, the long-term answer, and the prince that was promised to our program. You do that in Nebraska, there's more than just conversations going on with your name. You become a folklore immediately. Johnny Manziel transcended College Station in the middle of the night because if he beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa, and then he went on to win the Heisman. You do that at Lincoln, Nebraska, a place that has been trying to get back to its blue blood battle royale roots. You do that, you're never going to be forgotten. They're going to build statues. They're going to sing songs about you. There will be tales as old as time told about Dylan Raiola. And that's pressure. So don't think for 1 second that he's avoiding pressure by not going to Georgia and playing in the SEC. He's facing the same amount, if not more pressure, going to Lincoln. And he understands it. Now, let's look at the big picture real fast when it comes to the situation, especially if you're a Husker fan. Because I love you, Husker fans. I do. One of my favorite teachers of all time went to Nebraska. And more importantly, he still is a bleeding Husker at heart. But this is going to take time. You can't expect year one to see an elevation that turns you into a perennial college football playoff contender. This is still a kid in high school. He still is learning the ropes of how to play quarterback. There still is a lot of nuance to his game that hasn't even been untapped yet. This is where you look at your offense. This is where you look at Marcus Satterfield. This is where you look at your receiving room. This is where you look at the quarterback position and every veteran in there and you say, we got to untap what's left inside. And there's going to be some growing pains. So for a Nebraska fan, be patient because the last thing you want to do is run off a quarterback and then eventually see him be successful elsewhere. If you don't believe me, ask Auburn how they feel about Bo Nix right now. A lot of people not too keen about what the Ducks did once they got their hands on Bo. Same thing could be said about Dylan Raiola if he were to enter the transfer portal. At this point, everything is about building and adapting around Raiola. And that doesn't mean it has to happen in year one. He still has to win the starting job. And there could be a reason why Matt Rhule goes into the transfer portal, similar to what Oregon did with Dante Moore, and grab yet another quarterback just to finalize the roster. But everything moving forward, we have holes at wide receiver. We got to go out and add in a veteran. We have to add in a stalwart pass catcher. We look at offensive line. Our offensive line is not doing its job well enough. We have got to build from within, but maybe we can just go ahead and fill this hole like it's a Band-Aid with a left tackle with experience. Maybe the same thing goes for running back and tight end, and then it goes into the transfer portal. And all those things are big, and all those things are very precedent when it comes to building your roster, but this is everything that it goes to moving forward. How do we get the best version of Dylan Raiola? Because if Raiola hits, we're talking about a quarterback that has impeccable upside and nearly the same trajectory as a player, potentially like a Caleb Williams. And if you have Caleb Williams on your roster, the ultimate end goal is not to be 9-3 playing in a New Year's Six Bowl. It's to be hoisting up the national title. Lincoln Riley will never be able to live with himself or live that down, knowing that he had a Heisman Trophy winner, perennial #1 overall pick, and went 7-5 in his last year. So there's growing pains, but then there's also the fact of understanding we have to do everything to get the best version around this kid. It's not just getting the best version of Raiola, it's getting the best version around Raiola. But if you get all that, you have something special. This is big for the future of Nebraska football. And this is why you bring in Matt Rhule. He's supposed to change the culture, change the persona, change the entire way we view this program moving forward. And so far, he's done that. In a short amount of time, they played close in multiple games where it was a swing away from maybe being 8-4 instead of 5-7, or 9-3 and winning the Big Ten West than being 5-7. They also are now adding in premier talent, whether that be on the recruiting trail, via the transfer portal, however you see it. They're getting players to fall in love with Lincoln, and they're falling in love with Rhule's imagery. And if you look at Matt Rhule just in plain on paper, the man makes you want to run through a wall. He literally should have gone into public speaking, or at least gone into public office, because if that's where he is at his best. But if he can't go ahead and invoke this type of persona in front of the fans that are voting for him in the booth, he can at least do it for his players inside that locker room. So the persona is changing in Lincoln for the better. But now that you add in Dylan Raiola, now you get this kid involved. If you get the right version of him, you're in for a big, big, bright future. This is monumental. Early signing period still right around the corner. This is just the start. You're going to see a ton more names, I think, start looking at Nebraska a little bit more keen. We'll be up to date with it over here right on YouTube. So go ahead and give me a subscribe, follow, whatever you want to see fit. Follow me on Instagram, on Twitter, everything else at Mr. Cole Thompson. Same as my YouTube handle. But just remember, Nebraska fans, this is only the start. It's far from the end. And in the end, you're looking at a national championship if you get the right pieces around Dylan Raiola. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that video. Don't hit the X button yet. Make sure you hit subscribe to keep up with all of our daily content found on Just Saying It and anything else that we post on this channel. Bye.